Hello, everyone. Welcome to Advanced Storage Strategies for AWS. We are going to get started here in just a minute. I see people are still coming in. We want to give people just another 30 seconds or minute to get in here and get settled. So hang on and we'll get started here momentarily.
Waited too long.
All right, so yeah, we don't want to wait too long. Let's jump in. My name's Greg Newman, and you are at the Advanced Storage Strategies for AWS webinar. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. I'm here with Mark Levitt.
Good morning.
And Mark and I are going to be walking through slides, that is, if we can get them to work. We're going to be walking through some slides to show you a little bit more about AWS. I'm sure that everybody on this call is familiar with the AWS environment. We're going to talk a little bit about some storage strategies that might help you get more out of your AWS investment. There we go. Let's get over to those slides. There's me, Greg, and there's Mark. So you know who's on the call and on the webinar. Let's talk a little bit about our agenda real quick so you know. We're going to do about a half-hour presentation. We're going to leave some time for questions. We're going to go through storage needs. I'm sure everybody will be familiar and probably has one or more of these needs. A little bit about AWS, like I said, and then we're going to dive into a little bit about Zadara, what we do to enhance AWS, and you can learn a little bit more, therefore, about some options that are available to you and things that you may or may not have been aware of. And we'll leave a little time for that Q&A, like I said. All right, so let's get rolling. Storage options at Amazon Web Services. By a show of hands, how many?
A radio joke.
How many people out there use one or more of these services? In fact, you know what, Mark? We have a poll. Let's do that. Let's see here. I'm going to launch this poll now. Everybody should be seeing right now a poll up on your screen. Take a moment to answer this, and what we'll do is we'll publish the results right here online. Mark, what do you think? Let's handicap it. What do you think?
That's a tough one. I mean, I think there's going to be a pretty strong response on S3.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to guess EBS coming in second. But
I like that. I happen to agree with you.
I don't feel strong because EFS, you know, it can sneak in there too. FSX, I think, is too new. I don't think there's a lot of people on it.
Yeah, it's too new. That's right. I agree. All right, so we're getting people answering now. If I can get myself situated here with the
wayward mouse.
The mouse, yeah, he doesn't like that. We're going to close it, and we're going to share the results now. Okay, Mark, you said S3 was the winner. You are correct, sir.
That was an easy one.
That was a bit of an easy call, and you were correct about EBS being number 2. No surprise, FSX came in dead last.
That's new, and I don't think there's a lot of confidence in it yet.
Yeah, agreed. All right, so everybody, of course, on this call has had some experience with AWS. We all know AWS is great, but it is limited, right? And the ways in which it's limited are things that really impact enterprise storage users. Mark, talk about this. You know, you've got some real experience in this.
Yeah, well, I mean, you got part of it just from the nature of the poll, right? I mean, there are a whole series of storage offerings, and it can be really confusing to understand which one applies, what they're good at, what they do and don't do. Particularly in the traditional offerings. I mean, S3 is an object service, EBS block, EFS file, and particularly when you look at the EBS and the EFS offerings, they were designed, I think, very consciously to do cover 70–80% of use cases. But the tricky part is understanding what they don't cover and how that 70-80% maps to what your actual requirements are.
Yeah. So classic, cloud offering, and it works great.
Yeah.
The old 80-20 rule.
Yeah, aim for the center of the target.
Yeah. All right. Oh, excuse me. I don't want to get past that. This is what we believe everybody really is searching for. It's the, how can you have your cake and eat it too? Can you get the control of the enterprise with the agility of the cloud? And isn't that what we like, right? And
I think that's the holy grail there, right? I mean, and we're bearing a lot in the agility term. That's agility and flexibility to do the reason that you want to go to the cloud.
Yeah.
But giving up on enterprise functionality is a very it's not comfortable.
It is not comfortable, and it's a deal breaker for some of our customers.
For a lot of customers, yeah.
That's why they're here. So of course, if you think you need that, we believe you need Zadara. And so let's take a look at.
Actually, you in that picture?
We don't know who that fella is.
Maybe a few years.
It was taken a while ago. We are, in fact, an AWS competency partner. So let's mention that right up front. We've had that designation in a number of competencies since 2011, and we're very, very pleased to be able to work so closely with AWS. They do a terrific job, and we pick up really where they leave off.
Yeah.
And
that's the nature of the partnership.
Yeah. And you can see here, if you're in the media industry or in the public sector, we do have competencies in those as well. And we're on the marketplace, which we're going to talk about in a few minutes.
Right.
So what is our mantra here? What do we say? We say we are enterprise storage at your service. And that phrase means something, right? We're all familiar with the as a service designation, and there's software as a service, there's infrastructure as a service, platform as a service. But there's something different about the phrase at your service.
Right.
And what we mean by it, of course, is that we take things further.
Right. When we personalize it, it's specifically at your service. It's not. Again, it's not the lowest common denominator. It's not the 80% or 70% coverage that you get with a large cloud vendor, and nobody's larger than AWS. It's tailored to people who care about the problems that we set up and talked about enterprise control with cloud agility, and wrapped with a service that is backed by real life people that answer questions and help you do things.
It's funny, people come to us looking for the functionality, right? Looking for things like we talk about here. Gee, can you do snapshots? You got high availability.
Yeah, remote mirroring.
Remote mirroring is a very popular one.
Yeah.
And can you give me dedicated resources? Yeah. These are all features people are looking for, asking about. But what do we hear from our customers time and again is they came for the features, they stayed for the service.
Yeah. It's just, and it's a very different experience. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, again, this is nothing against any of the cloud vendors' offerings. They're very good at what they do.
Yeah.
But if you're in an organization or you benefit from really having somebody help you get up to speed, who is actively taking responsibility for your operating environment, that's different, and that's what we're doing.
Yeah, and we'll talk in a little bit about how that plays out and what we actually do there to fulfill on that promise. But before we do that, let's take a look at what you get. What is it that we actually give you if you're going to become a customer of Zadara?
What's in the box?
Yeah, what's in the box? What do you get? Well, we like to break it up and do what we think is an easy slide to understand. And so let's walk through it real quick from the bottom up. Chances are, if you're looking at this slide, you see one or more areas and one or more concerns that you have. You have field sales that you have to support potentially. Certainly you've got DevOps going on. Chances are, we were talking about this quite a bit yesterday, big data and analytics projects and initiatives are huge right now, and it's just growing.
Yeah, well, not only growing, but dynamic, right?
Yeah.
I mean, projects spin up and then they spin down.
Well, that's a good point.
Right, and so that's a unique feature too, is that we match that as well. We are dynamic in both directions.
Yeah, you can scale us up, you can scale us down. You only pay for what you need.
You're only paying for what you're using. Yeah.
And so, what are you going to use with us? Well, let's start with the green bar, and you see that's our private storage cloud. And by the way, the cloud. Let's take a moment right here to just define our terms. Cloud is an operating model. Cloud is not a destination, right? When you think about a cloud, often you think about the public clouds, of course, but we operate equally well in the public clouds and also on premises, and that's because our cloud model can travel. Our cloud model can be deployed anywhere, and the idea with a cloud model is that we have multi-tenant efficiency and single-tenant experience, and I know we're going to talk about that in a little bit more detail in a minute, but here you have a private storage cloud where we offer a virtual private storage array, and everybody who runs storage arrays knows what that term means. And we also have object storage. That's your basic storage, right? But Mark, you know, as our senior director of product marketing, you know perfectly well, that's not a whole product.
Correct.
So talk about the blue section and what's going on there.
Right. So, and the key is that we wrap that functionality with, and that core functionality is very strong. I don't want to just like brush by it, but we wrap the functionality with other layers of capability, including things like, and in the slide we see the integrated antivirus options, integrated backup options, lots of disaster recovery options, depending on requirements, because again, it's the service piece and it's the ability to individualize to an environment, out to functionalities like support for VMware Cloud on AWS is a hot topic for us. Or if you have robo requirements where you're doing remote office, branch office, these are big challenges for people, particularly in retail, or we've seen a lot of that in government.
Yeah.
And being able to bring those kind of solutions layered on top of that private storage cloud, it really gets you the solution. And
we do achieve some of that through our partnerships.
We do. We bring some of that ourselves, and we do some of that with partners. I mean, clearly VMware is a partner in this case,
yes,
as well as AWS in those cases.
Exactly.
But also in Robo, you know, we have partners that specialize in that get you the best of breed solution, you know, with your private storage cloud.
Exactly. You mentioned antivirus. McAfee is our partner.
Right.
That's how we do that. Well, let's take a little deeper dive. I want to make sure we stay on pace. I know that we promised we'd do a half hour and leave time for questions. So I mentioned a minute ago, multi-tenant efficiency with a single tenant experience. This was critical to us from the outset, right? The design of our system, we knew needed to fulfill on that promise. Mark, talk to us about, number one, why does that matter?
Right. Yeah, so there's a classic problem. It's kind of a term of art, but so maybe you're aware of it or not, but called noisy neighbor. And this is a concern when we talk about shared infrastructure. And of course, public clouds are the biggest examples of shared infrastructure there is. Now, the public cloud vendors do a lot to try and make sure that everybody has a good experience when they're on their infrastructure. What we do is we guarantee that by saying you have your own resources, period. You don't share the resources. You have your own, within the storage capability, you have your own compute, your own RAM, your own actual capacity, your own disk drives and SSDs are actually dedicated to, not just to a customer, but dedicated to a specific virtual private storage array instance. So you get that dedicated resources experience, that single tenant experience, but you get it with the scale and the agility and the flexibility of a cloud operating model.
Exactly. So this is really a hallmark feature. It is something that we find. I'm going to go out on a limb and say 100% of our customers.
I've never heard anybody say they didn't like that.
Yeah, they really do like it. Powerful capabilities, capably managed. Okay, clever marketing phrase. And again, there's that management piece. But this slide, and it's a bit much. I mean, we see that. There's a lot going on here.
Yeah, we can do 20 minutes on the slide.
Yes, we want to be careful here, but this begins to encapsulate some of what we offer. And I would imagine anybody on this webinar is seeing things here that they go, oh yeah, this is what I need if I'm an enterprise storage admin or user or customer.
Right, and we start over on the left side. I mean, where we're talking about, again, that's sort of the base of the private Zadara private storage cloud. Is you got to be able to store things, right? So with the technology, it's like we do block, we do file, and we do object, and in file we do CIFS and we do NFS on a bunch of different levels. So you have all kinds of options there, but you got to be able to do that
in a single service.
In a single service.
Yeah.
From a single service, single vendor, consolidated bill, all that simplicity. Again, all of it is pay for what you use. And then if you move over to the all flash and dedupe and SSD options, really the key here is that all flash is great. It isn't always what you need, and sometimes you'd like the ability to trade off, you know, your cost function, your price performance metric against your business requirement. So if you need all flash, that's great. We can give you that. If you want to do a hybrid flash hard disk, you want to do that. And if you have something that you just need a hard disk for, we can give you that too. And again, it's still in the same service. It's still it's managed the same way. It's the same tools. So it's all a combined service. And then we go through a lot of other things that are basic, thin provision volumes, big volumes.
The volume sizes have been a real hot button lately.
Yeah, I'm trying to keep us on track here. But you're right. I mean, like I said, we could spend 20 minutes on the slide easy. Being able to do large volumes is a big deal, both with file and with block. And then cluster support. I mean, I'm just going to jump down to that. Remote mirroring, the ability to do replication over transcontinental distances if you want to. Being able to support Microsoft clusters. One last thing, then I'll let you get to the next slide.
This is a good slide.
Yeah, it's a good slide. Is the encryption. And not everybody focus on that, but from a security perspective, most offerings you get from people have the ability to do encryption. You have to pay attention to, is it at rest, in flight? In our case, it's both. And the kicker is that with our encryption, you, the customer, the user, manage the encryption keys. We don't have them.
Yeah, so be careful. We do not have them.
Yeah, if you lose them, we can't help you. But we also, even were we so inclined, we cannot access your data.
Right, exactly. Okay, so we touched on some of these issues, but I wanted to unpack a few of them in a few slides because they're important. So here you mentioned it, NFS, CIFS, and Active Directory, right there in a single service, right?
That's correct. And there's actually, and of course, but there's more because we support multiple versions of, and as I mentioned, NFS versions 3 and 4. Yep. CIFS, you can have files common between NFS and CIFS. We have full support for Active Directory, so that for your Microsoft environments, for people that are looking at migrating enterprise Microsoft environments and network environments, let alone clusters, into public cloud. To do that, you got to have support for Active Directory if that's what you're doing. Unless you want to, and if you're in a hybrid situation, that's where it really gets painful. If you don't have a solution for AD in your public cloud offering, but you're using AD as your system, as your overall authentication architecture.
Oh, that's a problem. Yeah.
Yeah. Then you have to replicate. You have to create two separate regimes for authentication. Yeah. And that's clearly a big tax on your ability to move back and forth to the cloud. So having a solution that really can do the AD is a big deal.
Yeah, that's a good point. We hear that a lot from customers about the authentication. Let's talk about this. This is what I like about this slide is now we're showing a really clean, clear, direct relationship to AWS and how we complement what they do and extend what they do. You mentioned remote mirroring. We hear it time and again. This is just a staple of what people want to do.
For enterprises, it's just critical.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this actually, we see that could be a remote mirror between the two Zadara virtual private storage arrays, and then what we're doing there in that last piece is exercising our integrated backup capability to go ahead and leverage the low cost and just incredibly broad acceptance of Amazon S3, and use that as your backup data repository.
Yeah, so it's nice,
super
right?
Simple, yeah, super simple solution, very cost effective.
Exactly. If you're comfortable doing that, we hook right in. All right, we got something new going on with our partnership with VMware and AWS. VMware Cloud on AWS launched late last year, early this year. It has really been taking off.
It really has. And not just for us. I mean, obviously we work very closely with VMware on this, where our field is telling us that there is a lot of interest. We've seen a lot of press and analyst discussion of this. So and it's a really nice solution if you're in a VMware environment in your enterprise environment, and kind of who isn't, right? I mean, that is the way private clouds are done pretty much. And you want to extend that extend it or migrate it to a public cloud. This is a great solution for that because you can move applications and sets back and forth between your on-premises and your VMware Cloud on AWS environments. Maintain all your capabilities, maintain all your investment training. It's a really good solution.
Yeah. It's there's a lot.
It's great, but it's limited.
Right, exactly. So there's more to talk about with regard to VMware Cloud and AWS and Zadara. than we can cover in this webinar. And in fact, we have a webinar coming up on that next month.
We do.
And so,
with VMware.
And there's a recorded version, I believe, of our last webinar on our website right now. So if you want to learn more, anybody interested, go check out our website. You can learn a little bit more. And of course, you can always reach out to us. Secure encryption, you control the keys. You mentioned this before. It's so important, I made a slide for it.
It's so important. If I had known this slide was coming, I wouldn't have gone on quite that long on the other slide.
We don't need to dwell on this one, but it is important, and I'm glad we're mentioning it. The idea of security is so critical. It's really one of the top 2 or 3 things we talk about with virtually every customer.
Yeah, and in every survey of cloud users, issues around security are always issue 1 or issue 2.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we've got that covered, and there's more information about that, of course, in other places. We can't get into all of it here. We should do a webinar on security.
That wouldn't be a bad idea.
Let's do that. Okay, we're going to do that, everybody. Consolidated billing and management. This is it. Now, this I think a lot of people overlook the value of this. But this is huge for our customers who begin using it.
Right.
And the idea of being able to get one bill, have it in one place. What do they say? One throat to choke.
One throat to choke. One bill to pay. Anyway. Yeah. And this is, I mean, we've been doing things like this for a while, but what's new here is now we're fully in the Amazon AWS marketplace.
Yep.
So you can do all your transactions through there. It's still the full Zadara experience.
Yep.
You get all the capabilities. You get all the Zadara support. But this does give you one place to go and initiate that, and you get the consolidated billing. It comes with your AWS bill, so it is the simplest possible way to consume these services for your AWS environment.
You use the magic word around here, simple.
Yeah, simple is the key, and if there's something that we endeavor to do all the time is to make the complex simple.
Exactly. Albert Einstein, as a trivia, Albert Einstein said something like, you can't always make the complex simple, but you can make it as simple as possible.
Right.
And it's
that and explain it to a 6-year-old.
That's even better. All right, let's just touch on something that, speaking of keeping things simple, from a customer's point of view, this really keeps it simple. We're on your case 24/7. It's not just support, it's management, active management of the storage arrays. And we have ops teams located around the world on 4 different continents to do this. So we've got every time zone covered. And we have a team that gets to know each customer's storage array as if it were their own. And we do things like proactively alerting when it appears that you're getting close to running capacity.
And beyond that, we'll take action where we can. While we're alerting you, we will be averting disaster.
Yeah.
But I like what you picked up on there, which is the simplicity piece. And what this guarantee, this SLA does for end users is we're not splitting the difference between is it planned downtime or unplanned downtime, anything like that. It's just downtime, period.
Yeah, this guarantee, thank you, this is important. We're guaranteeing that you're going to be up 100% of the time, and if you're not, we pay the price.
We pay the price.
And that means that, by the way, our uptime track record
is excellent.
99.9995 plus.
Right, it's 4.5 nines.
No, 5.5 nines.
5.5 nines for the last 8 years.
8 years, yeah. So we feel pretty comfortable making a 100% uptime guarantee because we're about as close as you can get. And we're proud of that. And that track record, like you say, many years.
Of course, the other thing that tells you is that when in those imaginary situations where we might have created a downtime situation, it gets enormous focus from the top levels of the company.
Yeah.
Right now.
Yeah, exactly. And so uptime means what you think it means. This is the system's up and running and fully available. We have a separate metric for availability, data availability, and security, and that's 11 plus 9s. It's off the charts because the systems are architected with redundancy and
you're out towards life of the universe.
Really, exactly. This is where we operate with AWS, 16 regions and counting. So wherever you might be, chances are we're already there. And this means you get your pick. Go ahead and pick that region that's going to work best for you. And thanks to Direct Connect, we're in there with latency well below the threshold And then latency is an issue people want to
Absolutely.
know about.
Absolutely. I mean, not every application does latency matter. Maybe being 1,000 miles from a data center and having round trip times of 20 microseconds. Yeah, I'm sorry, 20 milliseconds is okay for some applications. But I think for most people's operational things, certainly if you're doing database operations like that, you need to keep them down low in the 1s and 2s.
Yeah.
And that's what we're accomplishing with this kind of deployment model.
Exactly. So rest assured on that one. Again, the funny thing about it, I'll just say it right here, as good a spot as any. We're old hands at this. I mean, the people who started this company, the founding team, are all storage industry veterans. They actually, ran and built storage for a living. So what better way to know exactly what somebody's going to need and how to architect a cloud-based system or a cloud-style system that won't let you down?
Yeah, and I just want to pick up on a couple of things there because there's a lot to unpack there, and I promise I won't unpack it all. But one of them is, you're right. I mean, the roots of this company are very deep in storage. But what's also true is, compared to other people who are coming to this model, dare I say, lately, this is a model that we have been operating the whole time.
Yeah.
That we've been in existence, and this is what we do. This is all we do, and we've been doing it since we started. So we're not dipping our toe in, right? We're as committed as you can get to this. And what that also means is, we also learn from our experiences, and we've been operating a lot of storage for a long time. Yeah. And so we learn those lessons too. And it's not just how we started.
So we this is a good point you bring up, because we do see, of course, there are choices in the market.
Sure.
A lot of them are, Johnny come lately. They're going to learn the same lessons that we had to learn.
Yeah.
But we did it 8 years ago.
Right.
And by the way, we're operating. You brought up a good point. Not only do we operate in the 16 regions you see here, we have over 200 data centers around the world. So our operations are much, much larger than AWS, but this is a big part of our business as well. And we're.
Let me qualify that. When we say our operations are much larger than AWS, we have many operations in addition to our AWS operations. We're not claiming to be larger than AWS.
That's an important clarification. What do they do? 22 billion?
Yeah,
we're close. We're getting there.
We're
not quite there yet.
Within a couple orders of magnitude.
Yeah, exactly. Control your data, control your costs. This speaks to the point you made earlier about the different options with respect to storage media and so forth.
Well, and this is more complex than that. I mean, yes, that's very, the control. The idea that you can match the type of storage you're going to use to your business requirement, that you can change it at any time as your requirements change, that you can go up, that you can go down, and that you pay for it as an OPEX model instead of a CAPEX model. And this we're seeing in the industry. I mean, this is really catching fire this year. A lot of people are very excited about moving to a full OPEX model on their storage. But even and then you wrap that into that, and where this is a fully, again, it's a cloud sort of thing. This is a fully managed offering. So a lot of things that go into here when you look at total cost of operations, it does not take as many resources to run your storage over time. You don't have to worry about periodic migrations. 5-ish year life cycle of CapEx acquisitions. So there are a lot of things that go into why this really is a very good financial decision. I want to add to it. Listen, I'm putting on my eye patch right now. I'm going to go pirate here for a second.
Mark is laughing because I think he knows where I'm going with this. This chart that you see here was created by the Evaluator Group. They did an independent total cost of ownership study, and the line you see for cloud services, the reason that line is so much higher than Zadara is not only do we have the flexibility, like you mentioned, picking different media, but it turns out because this is all we do, our costs are just lower.
Yeah.
And yes, that does include AWS in some cases, but we don't tend to trumpet that too loudly because we feel that AWS brings a lot to the party. There's a lot of reasons to stay with them. Nevertheless, we do see that there are times when it might make sense to look around a little bit, whether you're on EFS, for instance, or something else.
Right. Yeah. I mean, again, when I talked about that we're not trying to come at least to this model, I mean, there are a lot of legacy storage companies that are jumping onto this model. And don't get me wrong, they're good companies with smart people, but they haven't been operating this kind of thing in the time. On the other side, the cloud operating models, like we said, the big cloud vendors, they've been aiming at the center 70% or so of the requirements. The reason to go to us for if you're in an AWS environment is for the additional capabilities and for the service.
Hey, we're doing pretty well on time. Look at it, it's 10:30. We only really have another slide or so, and then we can get to questions. So I'm feeling good. We're fulfilling on our promises today. One thing we haven't mentioned yet, Mark, we've talked, of course, we do a lot of business, we have a lot of customers. Here's some logos.
Yeah.
And you can see some names you probably know, big old names there. You can also see some names you probably don't know. And the point I want to make about that is we are a great fit for businesses of all sizes, whether you're a large enterprise like some of the names you see here with Toyota and Verizon and so forth, or you're a mid-market company. So that's something that I think a lot of customers that come to us first don't realize. They think, oh, gee, you're only for the largest enterprises because you're so capable, you do so much. But no, in fact, the way we've architected this thing, it's very, very affordable.
Right, and what makes that work is, I mean, we're really easy to get started with, and a lot of that actually comes back to that whole service angle, right? Not only are it's very easy to start small and grow your environment, and we have all that flexibility, but we also have people who will help you get onto the storage and set up your environment and get what you want out of it. And that's different than an automated dialing system or a FAC or a help center, right? It's a different experience, and it works very well for mid-market companies.
Yeah, somebody had said, one of our new sales guys, he said, gee, it's like a data concierge.
Yeah, that's good.
I like that. That was fun. I like the way he picked up on that.
Dibs.
Mark's calling dibs on that one. I think Mac already got it. Yeah. So anybody that might be interested in learning more, good news, we make it easy. 14-day free trial. Check it out at Zadara.com. When you fill that out, what happens is that one of our storage experts reaches out and calls you. Again, there's that white glove treatment. We're going to make sure that we walk you through the setup. We're going to talk to you about the capabilities, and whatever your trial project might be, we're going to make sure that you get the right storage solution to fit those needs. So very much a hands-on experience, and we recommend it. We think that it's, heck, it's free. Why not?
Yeah, it's a good way to try it out and to see how flexible the environment is.
All right. We promised you we would get done in 30 minutes. It's 32 minutes.
That's pretty good.
I'm feeling pretty good.
Plus or minus 10%.
Yeah, exactly. So what we are going to do now, everyone, thank you very much for attending. We sure appreciate it. We've not been able to cover everything you might need to or want to talk about with regard to Zadara and enterprise storage and how we play with AWS. So we've left time for questions. Let's take a look at our first question. I have here migration. Oh, okay. Migrating is something that comes up all the time. We have a cloud migration service, Mark.
Right. Yeah, we do. So the answer to questions like this is always, it depends on how you want to do it. We do have a cloud migration service. You can migrate to, let's start at the baseline. You can migrate onto us the same way you would migrate onto any storage system. And the specifics are down to, are you migrating block, are you migrating file, or are you migrating object? And so there's going to be different specific answers depending on what you're actually doing there. But the migration service will help you actually do any of those, up to and including actually lift and shift operations. If you have a lot of data and it makes more sense to ship the data and integrate in the environment, we can even help you do that.
Nice. Good. I hope that answers that question. And of course, if you want to know more, reach out. There's another question here about performance. We talked a little bit about this earlier, but people are concerned. They want to know that they're going to be well served. Somebody asked a question about IOPS. Where are we on the IOPS? And we hear that all the time. That's a measure, and it's
right. Yeah, it very much depends on your deployment model. We haven't discussed it in this webinar because it's not really part of the core subject matter for this webinar, but we have other deployment models. You mentioned that we have a lot of business that isn't tied to AWS, or maybe not all sites are tied to AWS. One of our deployment models is on-prem.
Yep.
Another deployment model would be in support of AWS in this case. And obviously those are going to have, or not obviously, but to tell you, I mean, those could have different performance characteristics. It comes down to what your requirements are. Raw IOPS numbers, and I've been in storage for, I don't want to say how long, but it's a really long time, including doing a lot of qualification work on storage arrays. And raw IOPS numbers are pretty terrible in terms of tools to figure out how your application will perform. If you have an application that you think will perform well in a public cloud environment, then we can meet or exceed your requirements to do that almost always with one of the options that we have. If you have an environment where you absolutely have to minimize your transaction times, which is really what we're talking about, we're really talking latency more than anything else, then that's not a good choice for putting in the public cloud. And you should look probably at the on-prem options, which are something you can totally do.
You know, it occurred to me while you're answering that question, I'd written a poll, and I'm glad you said something, because maybe we can, the folks here that are listening to this answer, maybe you can take a moment and answer here what your use cases or applications are, because you're right, your application, your use case can make a difference in terms of the storage scheme you want to deploy.
Right, and my request would be on this poll would be to say, focus on the ones that you think that you are most interested in having in an AWS environment.
Yeah, exactly. All right, people are still answering. We're gonna wrap it up here in a few seconds. It doesn't take too long to push a button, right? So
yeah,
we're pretty good. Oh, it's changing. Wait a minute.
Right. Yeah, I saw the numbers. It's like, I feel like it's election night. We're just watching another couple states just rolled in.
All right, and then gone.
Oh, it changed right before you said gone.
Did it? Oh my goodness. All
okay.
Right.
Well, that and that, you know, it's funny because the distribution changed a lot over the course of that poll.
It did, didn't it?
So backup DR, I'm going to interpret that as, since that's our longest bar there, I'm going to interpret that as backing up to the cloud.
Yeah.
That is a great use case.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is.
And we're big fans for a lot of reasons. But backing up to the cloud is a good thing to do. That is one of the capabilities that we have. We have a very efficient backup to cloud capability. And of course, the back end of it is, pardon the expression, is also making sure you can restore from your backup. I mean, and I've lived in that environment a little bit. And in our solution, our backup to object store capability also lets you restore to almost any kind of storage, not even just Zadara storage. So if you if you use it as a relatively inexpensive way to do DR, you actually could then restore to almost any kind of storage that you have anywhere once you have that backup. So that's a good, strong one. Archive, another great environment, similar discussion. Distributed file access, I think people tend to underestimate how important that is.
Yeah.
And we with our flexibility in our file systems, have just great support for distributed file systems. So if that's important to you, I could be a little biased, but I really think you ought to reach out to us and have a discussion about what your requirements are and how we can help you there, because we got, again, some really good solutions on distributed files. High availability, that's almost a trick one, right? It's like, who here is not interested in high availability? Right? Right. We all want high availability, but there are some, but obviously with a cloud model, there's some very interesting things you can do. And that actually kind of goes to maybe even that VMware Cloud on AWS discussion, where you can do failovers, VMware level failovers between your on-premises and your cloud environments. And you can do the same thing in lots of environments, depending on how your applications are structured. It's a great use of cloud, and there the key is to work with the partners who really have that working. In our case, what we have is we have the capability to make sure that you're getting your replication to wherever you need it, and then there's another piece in there that goes to other things you can do with that replicated data. But yeah, those are all pretty classic applications and things I think that we have really good solutions for.
You know what the survey? I'm looking at the answers here. You know what this does? We're going to be putting together some webinars on these topics. Yeah, we need to talk about.
Feeling empowered here.
Thank you, everyone, for giving us some good info. I didn't think about it that way, but seeing the interest in these different topics, I think it would be a good idea.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and sure. I mean, I'd love to key off of things that people are actually, telling us that they want to do.
All right, cool. So we'll be doing that, and so look for announcements in the coming weeks. And if you find a topic that's interesting to you, we hope you'll join us. We're getting close to the end here. We don't have time for too much more. I want to thank everybody for being a part of today's webinar, and I want to please encourage you, if you'd like to learn more, check out a free trial. If you have questions, we have people that are prepared to answer those in depth, storage experts.
Right.
Sure, we're going to try to sell you something. We can't help it.
Right. I'll make one more pitch there for real live people on the ends of telephones who will answer questions for you.
Isn't that a pleasure?
Yeah.
Somebody actually picks up the phone. So thank you, everyone, again, for joining us for Advanced Storage Strategies for AWS, and look forward to seeing you at the next one. Bye-bye.
Bye.